But it's also true in like social settings, right? Like you go to a social setting, you connect with somebody, you start talking with them, and they start talking about something that you don't know a lot about,
Right.
and you're worried, God, I'm going to look really stupid. Like they say, what did you think about the Raptors game last night? And you go, oh, did they play? Or what do you think about, oh, I don't know, fusion or something like that?
Right.
You go, oh
Right.
my God, I'm like out of my league. But we're not out of our league. We just
No.
need to play a game that we can play,
Yes.
and not knowing stuff is part of it, actually.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious. Motivation. Be audacious. Innovation. Be audacious. Inspiration. Be bold. Motivation. Be
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast. As always, it's a pleasure to be here, and I truly appreciate you choosing time out of your day to spend it with us here. This podcast exists for one simple but powerful reason. It's to help you live your best audacious life ever. Now, think about this for a moment. Imagine standing at the edge of a trail you've never walked before. There's no map, there's no clear signs, just curiosity pulling you forward. Most people freeze right there. They wait until they feel ready, until they know more, until certainty shows up. But audacious living doesn't begin with certainty. It begins with curiosity. Today's conversation is about what happens when we stop pretending we know everything and instead treat not knowing as a fuel for growth, creativity, and innovation. We're going to explore why embracing ignorance can unlock breakthrough ideas, how purpose drives direction to creativity, why curiosity keeps us moving forward, how respecting diverse perspectives strengthens teams, and why calculated risks and failure are not threats, but teachers. Joining me today is Alan Gregerman. He's a globally recognized innovation speaker, advisor, and author. Alan has spent decades helping organizations, leaders, and teams reimagine how they think, work, and solve problems. His work centers on a powerful idea that curiosity, humility, and purpose are not soft skills. They're survival skills. His book, The Wisdom of Ignorance, challenges one of the most dangerous myths in modern leadership and innovation, that knowing more always makes us better. Alan's mission is really simple. It's simple and it's really human, I should say. So simple and human. And he wants to help people and organizations create meaningful value while also giving back. He donates a significant portion of his time to nonprofits focused on youth, helping people and people who are experiencing homelessness, individual developmental differences, and environmental restoration. This makes him especially relevant to today's episode because audacious living is not about ego or expertise. It's about impact, service, and the courage to say, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. So with all that in mind, let's get into this very powerful conversation about curiosity, purpose, innovation, and what it really means to live audaciously in an uncertain world. Here's my chat with Alan Gregerman. Enjoy. Hey, Alan, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to do this, my friend.
Oh, I'm delighted to be part of it. Thanks for inviting me.
This is good. This is good. I always say that the opportunity to engage in sort of dialogues that can help people get to a better place just really excites me, and really happy to be part of that process. So I appreciate that you're helping me kind of fulfill my own little personal mission here. We spend much time really encouraging individuals to kind of have that best audacious life, right? And I think the really important thing about that is understanding there's different pathways. I use the analogy of like a good journey, right? You'll go on our own individual pathway, and it's incumbent on us to take that step and be bold. And sometimes it's going to get scary. It's going to be there's be unknown factors, but we move anyways, and that's really what we want to try and encourage because. On the other side of those steps where maybe it's an adversity or a picture of boulder or something in your path, on the other side is where the greatness lies. We can't get there until we move forward in that direction. And so that's kind of a summation what we like to encourage here. You are defined as a world class innovation speaker, which thinker rather, which I absolutely love because innovation, it is there's an intersection between audacity, which is what we talk about here, and then another thing that I absolutely one of my if I were to if I didn't, so here's a true story, that if I didn't land on Audacious Living podcast, I would call it the Curious podcast because I love the topic of curiosity. And so innovation really ties the two into one another. And so it's great to have you here. And maybe as a starting point, I can get you introduce yourself to our audience, talk about the work that you do, and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I appreciate being here. And innovation, of course, is my life. I've spent like 40, I don't want people to know how old I am, like 40 years
Own it,
working
man.
in
Own it,
innovation.
Alan. Own it.
I started in innovation actually before innovation was like a really hot thing to do.
Right.
But so I help companies and organizations innovate. And by innovate, I mean come up with greater value for their customers, help their
Mm,
customers or the people they serve to be more successful.
right.
And I've been doing this for a while and I do it around the world. Um, and I enjoy doing it. And it's all about, you mentioned curiosity. It's all about basically teaching people and organizations how to have an open mind and how to believe anything is possible. And
Yes.
so I also tied to that, I write books. I have a fourth book coming out called The Wisdom of Ignorance. And the simple notion of that is that in a world moving really fast, um, it's actually way more audacious to say I don't know than I do know, because the truth of the matter is we can't know exactly what the future is going to hold, but we can develop a set of skills. Curiosity is one of them
Sure.
that allows us to navigate a future that's a bit uncertain. So I speak and I work with companies and organizations around that. I'd also love your viewers to know that I donate 20% of my time to
Hmm.
small nonprofits working to make the world a better place.
Beautiful.
So if they are part of a small nonprofit and they're interested, have them go to my website. And if they think I can be helpful, just have them send me a cryptic email and I respond to all my emails. But I'm particularly focused on young people. They're our future, of course. I'm focused on people who have been unhoused and
Mm.
whose potential is limitless if we
Yep.
can help them. I'm focused on people with developmental differences and then organizations that are also trying to restore the planet. So those are the
Yeah.
four areas, but I'm open to other stuff. If people are
Love
doing
it.
good stuff, I want to be involved. And our customers are companies in every industry, I have
Sure.
to be honest,
Sure.
because I know nothing about any, no. I,
Well,
I
there's the
can
ignorance coming in, right? I don't know
Oh,
nothing.
oh no, one of our customers once said, when it comes to being ignorant, Alan Gregerman's a genius. And so I don't know if that was a backhanded compliment or an actual compliment.
Well, take it on the positive side. It was yes, you're a genius. You're a genius. I want to talk about the book and the title I love. The wisdom is of ignorance, because there are so many individuals that don't want to display their ignorance, don't want to act like they don't know, they don't want to feel like they don't measure up because they're not in the loop. Or in others, they just feel uncomfortable with the uncertainty of not knowing stuff. That's a tough one for a lot of people to get over, isn't it?
Well, it's a tough one in a bunch of settings, right? So it's a tough one at work. It's really a bad look to show up in a meeting and say, I'm kind of clueless,
Oh, no.
unless I'm clueless in the right way. If
Right,
I'm clueless and I suddenly say, have you guys thought about doing this? And that opens up people's minds, that's a good thing. But most people don't want to take that chance. And especially new people, they arrive at an organization, they're invited to a meeting and they go, I certainly hope nobody asks me my opinion. When in
yeah,
fact, if they're new, their opinion's really valuable. So that's important. Students, if anybody's listening who's a student, the reality is we don't want to show up in class and fear that the professor will
sure,
ask us to raise our hand and ask us a question. But it's also true in like social settings, right? Like you go to a social setting, you connect with somebody, you start talking with them, and they start talking about something that you don't know a lot about,
right.
and you're worried, God, I'm going to look really stupid. Like they say, what did you think about the Raptors game last night? And you go, oh, did they play? Or what do you think about, oh, I don't know, fusion or something like that?
Right,
You go, oh,
right.
God, I'm like out of my league. But we're not out of our league. We just
No.
need to play a game that we can play,
Yes.
and not knowing stuff is part of it, actually.
I will tell you one of the things that I do anytime I get into those conversations I know nothing about, I'm not an expert on that. I find a way to bring it back to my core, the things that I do know about, right? And so if someone brings up some fusion, oh yeah, so what's so audacious about fusion? Or maybe I'll talk about basketball or something that I'm comfortable with. And it's interesting because I find that the more I guess the more you do it right, the better you get at it. And I find it really easy to make those correlations now. Like, oh yeah, so how does that relate to this? And I sort of bring it back to my and that's just my whole thing. And actually what it does help me to understand a bit better. And so I can certainly see, the subtitle, of your book makes sense, right? It's the idea of, why not knowing could be a good thing because it can help actually bridge connections.
Oh, I think not knowing is actually a superpower. And here's the reason I say that is the reality is the world and business are filled with a lot of problems and opportunities we haven't solved yet. And we
Right.
haven't solved them with like a massive amount of expertise, okay? So my guess is, would a naive person who suddenly says, I really don't know, but I'm curious to find a better answer, likely figure something out? And my experience and research suggests that happens most of the time. That
Mm.
most of the time, knowing a lot can help us make things a bit better, but
Yep.
not knowing things allows us to imagine new possibilities. And
Yes.
so I'm absolutely keen on this. And I would like people to show up in meetings and say, I don't know, not that I don't know and I don't care, but I don't know, but I want to figure out a new and better way to do this. I'm kind of
Right.
engaged
Right.
in making something happen. I'm letting my ignorance suggest to me this is a problem worth solving.
Yeah, and it takes you out of that field of subjectivity, right? Like if you don't, and that's why. So for me, curiosity is such a big thing because it doesn't allow you to be judgmental, right? You can't be curious and asking questions, and being judgmental at the same time. It's kind of one or the other, right? And so if you stay, or if you find ways to stay in that curious space as much as possible, you are continually opening up yourself to new possibilities, as you suggest.
Right. So now let me even add to the equation, and that is I wrote a book a little while ago called The Necessity of Strangers. And
Okay.
so my fundamental idea is each day I walk past 100 people who know something that could change my life, but I never connect with them.
Mm.
So what if I imagine, or I sit on like a subway car and I look at all these people generally on their cell phones, and I say to myself, God, I wish I could just sit down with them and have a conversation
Yeah.
with them because I
Hmm.
bet they know something. And for me, the more different they look than me, the more likely I'm going to learn something new.
Absolutely. I love that.
But most people don't do that, okay?
No,
And so they
no.
miss a huge opportunity. So I
Yes.
just want people to cast a wide net, look at ideas from around the world in different industries, connect with people who are different than you. Just be open to the possibility. I love. Oh, there you go. Okay, just be open to the possibility. Um, that there are ideas anywhere, and one of those ideas could spark our best thinking. We just have to go
Yes.
find them. But if we
Yes.
sit at our desk and we let the world pass by
Yep.
and we're on our screen, we miss all those chances to do something remarkable.
So let's talk about ways that we can do that. So I would say we talked about curiosity, keep maintaining a curious mind as much as possible. I would imagine, being open as much as we possibly can. What else can we do to help us make sure or get us to that point where we're always where we
Good.
want to be, I guess, is what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's fair. So let me give you, so I talk about really the 6 keys to what I call enlightened ignorance,
Okay.
but for your show, we'll call them the 6 keys to audacious living. But here they are. I want everybody to think about these things because they're fundamental in every
Yes.
aspect of our life to doing remarkable things. So the first is we got to have a purpose, okay? And so all these people who think they're going to do something remarkable, but they have no focus or no purpose or no problem they're trying to solve, aren't going to win, okay? And
Hmm.
so whether your purpose is to figure out a new model for helping people who have been homeless to reach their potential,
Yep.
whether your purpose is to create a new product that's not ultra processed and that's healthy for people to eat, other than poutine, you're probably a fan of poutine.
A little bit, a little bit, a little bit.
No, I won't say anything mean about poutine. No,
No.
but But we need to have a purpose. Whether my purpose is to create art, whether my purpose is to create a new invention, whether my purpose is to use AI in a way that helps people, what I need a purpose. Purpose is the focus that drives me. A lot of the time, we have a notion innovation is about let me just wander and get like ideas. Um, Actually, that's fun, but it's not going to carry the day. So purpose matters. The second, then, of course, as you said, is curiosity. So
Mm,
now that I have a purpose, I should be curious about a world of ideas that could help me to think differently. Now,
gotcha.
let me kind of really stir the pot for most companies and organizations and people by letting people know that 99% of all the new ideas in the history of humanity
Hmm.
have been based on someone else's thinking or something someone found in nature. So now let's pause for a moment and think about that.
I love that.
Organizations tend to be innovative by inviting really smart people into a room and saying, "Does anybody have an out of the box idea?"
Right,
And
right,
it's as though we haven't had an out of the box idea. We're supposed to turn on the part of our
right. Yeah,
brain,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right.
that's going to come up with a new idea. Like, excuse me, like I'm
Right.
here every day using what I think I know.
Yep.
And so, and then people just sit there with a blank sheet of paper saying, God, why did I get invited to this meeting? The
Mm,
reality is, if we want to be innovative, we should open the doors and have people explore the world around them,
yep.
looking for ideas already that are the starting point for our own best thinking. Okay.
Right, right.
Um, Everybody who's listening probably can find something in their home or office that uses Velcro. Okay, Velcro is like a kind of everywhere.
Yep.
Um, it has like 100,000 applications. Velcro wasn't invented by like a scientist in a lab. It was invented by a retired guy walking his dog through the woods, and he noticed that his dog was covered with burrs. And unlike people who for 30,000 years had walked their dog through the woods, he pulled one off, looked at it under a microscope, and said, that's kind of awesome that something could just stick so quickly and stick so well. That's how Velcro. So it
Wow.
existed, but somebody said there's a way to use this. So
Mm.
curiosity is vital. The third is humility. We talked a little while ago, but I got to be willing to say I don't know all the
All the
answers,
answers.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so if somebody raises a topic in a meeting, I got to say, I don't think we're smart enough right now. We can do better. And then we
Mm.
got to go out, so we got to go out and do it. The fourth that you talked about is respect. And that is, I ought to respect every other human on the planet. If
Yep.
there's somebody listening to your podcast that doesn't believe that they can learn something from all 8 billion people on Earth,
Yep.
well, I shouldn't say anything bad, but they're wrong. Okay,
They're wrong.
they're
Yep.
wrong. So respect. So I should respect everyone. And so
Sure.
in the book, The Wisdom of Ignorance, I write about a person that most folks would not think about, a homeless gentleman that I befriended,
Mm.
and I write about all the things I'd learned from him
Wow.
during my regular breakfast with him. And most people would say, "What can I learn?" I can learn something from everyone if I'm willing to
Yes.
listen and I believe
Yes.
in their value. Okay.
Yes.
The fifth thing is I need to be future focused. And so that
Mm.
is I need to live today, but with an eye toward the future because the future is going to be different.
That's
And
right.
so I need to pay attention to it. I need to see what young people are doing. I need to wander through like hip, trendy neighborhoods and see what's new there. I need to go to modern art museums. I need to go to a concert by a new artist I've never heard of.
Yep.
I might not like their music, but I need to go anyway.
Right. That's
Um,
right.
and so I need to think about the signs the world is giving me about what's going to be different. I need to kick the tires with technology. And then the last thing, which my wife has an issue with, but we'll go with that anyway, is
Been
we
listening.
all need to be a bit paranoid. Okay. So my
Okay.
wife, who spent her career as a nurse, is a really upbeat person. She goes,
Yeah.
"Do you have to use the word paranoia in your book?" And I go, "Here's what I mean by that. Um, if we don't do something remarkable in our lives, our
Yep.
businesses, our social relationships, somebody else will. There's somebody who's going to figure out something new and eat our lunch. And so we all need to keep an eye behind us. So we need to look at the future, but we all need to look behind us and realize that somebody's always gaining on us. And that's a good thing because that inspires us to be our best self. Okay, I'll slow down for a minute.
No, 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 no. I love them all, and I think they're all bang on and very very applicable, but also they're very relatable. I think everyone that entire list, those six things are all elements that either maybe already be exhibited in our daily actions, or we know how to or have at some point. But the point really is that they're not these far away things that are outside of our realm of understanding, right? And so I sort of appreciate that because I think that's really practical.
Well, so exactly. So I struggled when I wrote this book with the notion that these six things are actually innate human gifts. As humans, we're all capable of doing these
Yeah,
things, but somewhere between like the school bus picking us up and the world of adult work, we lose the knack for them. But they're fundamentally skills we can develop that are inside of us. Okay. And so
nice.
I want people to think about that. You're not predisposed to disrespect people. You're not
Mm,
predisposed to not be curious. You're not predisposed to wander through life aimlessly. You're predisposed to have a purpose. You're not predisposed to not have a sense. Everybody who's listening probably has had a bad dream or a nightmare, right? Almost everybody can remember the book Where the Wild Things Are, which is about this kid
sure.
Max, who Max misbehaves. His parents send him to his room, and he has like a dream or a vision that he's been transported to an island where there are monsters, and he's got to win them over. We got to do the exact same thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I love it. You sort of alluded to, I don't know if you said it directly, but I think you alluded to the diversity of thought. And I think that's a really important one. So diversity is something that we talk a lot about, right? It's important to be diverse, companies be diverse. And so that, bringing different people from perspectives or countries or whatever, that means to them. But the piece which I think is so in line with what you're talking about here is the diversity of thought, right?
Right.
You're not going to bring everyone, the same people in the same room you were last week and say, come up with something new, right? Because there's no diversity, right?
Right. So I think there are some people trying to convince us that diversity is bad, that it's like
Mm,
woke, which is a lot of, I can't use a bad word on this, but it's a lot of BS, okay? But the truth of the matter is, and I've been an innovation consultant for, as I mentioned, more than a few years, actually probably a few years longer than some of the listeners. But anyway,
yep,
the reality is exactly what you said. In the absence of casting this wider net of people, ideas, places, possibilities, industries,
yep,
um, I can't win. If my objective is to be remarkable, I ought to tap a world of ideas. That means people from different backgrounds, people from different ages,
yep.
people who know a lot and don't know a lot, people from different cultures. I ought to look at history. I ought to look at science is actually important. You wouldn't guess that from hanging out in the US right now,
Right.
but science actually is really important. But anyway, the more I can, and if people want to look at my LinkedIn, because I actually wrote about diversity, I think earlier this week.
Okay, okay.
And so, um, but here's a simple way for people to think about diversity. How many people listening to this podcast would like to each and every day eat at McDonald's or eat at Tim Hortons? That's a Canadian company, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
how many people would want to do, or eat poutine every day? No, so we don't. So the reality is we see that in so many aspects of our life. Do we
Yep.
want to listen to exactly the same music every day? I don't think so.
Right.
So why don't we suddenly say, why don't I go to work and cast a wider net in thinking about
Yeah.
ideas?
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing.
Hmm.
You know, Ideas bring spice and flavor and smells and possibilities, that we need. Otherwise, life is not only boring, but we're never going to do something brilliant.
You're absolutely right. I'm 100% with you, and I think, and by doing that allows us to lead into something that you call team genius, right?
Yeah. Well, so exactly. So think about this. Um, I, well, no, I'm not particularly clever. I'm a
No,
genius at not knowing stuff, okay? But the reality is, let's just assume we put a group of people together from different backgrounds, different tenures in our organization,
yep,
different neighborhoods in our city, and we ask them to engage the world head on. And I do
yes,
this all the time. I take teams of people, instead of beginning to meet in a conference room, I take them wandering around cities looking for ideas. I take them to lots of cool places. Um,
yes,
the
yes,
variety of those people the diversity of those people means that every stop along the way, we get a lot of ideas because people see
Of
things
course.
differently,
Of
right?
course.
Like I go, one of the places I love, because I love their values, is a British cosmetics company called Lush. And I'm
Okay.
sure,
Yeah.
you know, so I take business executives into a Lush store, which smells kind of intense. There's soap that looks like cheese and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And young people go, damn, this is awesome. And, the folks at Lush say, you want to try some of our bath balm or our shave cream? And young people go, I'm all over that. And older people go, why did I come in here? Give me a break. So
Right.
I want all these perspectives. I mean, ultimately, I want them to understand what Lush does that's special, of course.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
everywhere I take some, I take some people to, I take teams to modern art museums. And people go, somebody just like threw blue paint on a canvas. You call that art? And I go, well, they're the artist and they called it art. And I think there's something going on here. Let's try and be open-minded and think about it. Other people go, God, this person's like a genius. So I want all these perspectives because within all these perspectives, we're going to come to something brilliant. If I have
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
perspective, I got to
Yep.
get really lucky about whether that one perspective is brilliant. But if I
Yep.
have a bunch of ideas and I can wrestle with those ideas, then I have a chance to do something awesome.
I think so, absolutely,
Yeah.
because and so in what I think about as you're talking about this team genius and coming together.
Right.
So for example, in the improv space, right? There's this concept of yes and right.
Right.
So it's the group comes together and if you think about on an improv stage, right? If someone throws something out there, I've got to receive and do something because if I
Right.
don't, then the scene shuts down. So it's
Right.
it's the idea of building on. So yes, I receive and I'll add to it. So you build on that, and so that when we talk about innovation, that's how innovation is developed and blossomed and nurtured because we're continually being accepting of what we're not saying. Oh, that's a bad idea. Let's not do that. Not shutting it down, but to your point earlier, how can I make this better? And that's sort of what I think about when you
Yeah.
talk about that.
Well, so think about this.
Hmm.
Um, as humans, we're 99.3% the same across all humans on Earth, okay? But for some crazy reason, we focus on the 0.7% that
The
makes us
difference.
different, okay? We see somebody, they look different,
Yeah.
They're a different color, they're a different age, they're from a different place, they have an accent. We find reasons because they're different to actually not engage with them and learn from them. My view is so in every assignment I have all these activities that I do up front that are super fun, where I get people to connect with people who are different than them and
Beautiful.
realize how much they have in common with them
Beautiful.
and their shared humanity. Then we go out in the world together with different
Beautiful.
viewpoints, but as humans, okay? As a team of diverse humans who are eager to engage the world. You know,
Beautiful.
so that frustrates me so much of the time, because I'll go into organizations and they'll say, have you ever worked with such a diverse organization? And I'll go, I don't know. Are they all humans who work here? And they'll go, yes. And I'll go, awesome. So we have a starting
Fair
point. Let's
point.
connect as humans, and then we'll figure out what everybody knows that's different and
That's it.
valuable.
You make such a beautiful point because the focus isn't on the differences. It's and the differences are so minute in the grand scheme of things. Everyone has hopes, wishes, dreams, fears, aspirations, things that make them laugh, people they love. Like we share so much, but you're right. We focus on what we don't have, and oftentimes what we don't have is so insignificant. They really are in the grand scheme of
Well, yeah,
things.
and so we make those things deal breakers, like I can't work with this person, or I can't
Yep.
innovate with that person, or I'll
Yep.
never make them part of my friend group, or whatever the
Mm,
case is. When the reality is, we should welcome that. I like to say it's our similarities, 99.3%, that should bring us together, and our differences are the raw materials for us doing something awesome.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so how do organizations, you work with a lot of organizations, how do they encourage that fresh thinking and keeping it
Yeah,
always
yeah,
in
yeah.
that state of mind? Yeah.
So I work with lots of organizations. I think we've worked with like 400, and many are
Wow.
among the largest companies and
Yep.
organizations in the world. How do they do it? it has to start at the top, okay? So it
Mm,
has to start with, and when I get invited to kind of talk with a company or organization about whether or not I can help them be more innovative, I say, I need to talk to the folks at the top because I need to see what message they want to give. And the message I think they want to give is not unlike what we've talked about. I need to be clear that they have a purpose that's worth pursuing. You know, life is too short to be working with
totally.
companies that aren't doing something that matters. Then
Yes.
I need to feel that they are curious about the reality they could do it better, that there's a better way. Then that leaders are humble, that leaders are willing to go in front of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people and say, you know, I don't know all the answers. I believe that together we'll find those.
Hmm.
And so organizations need to do that. Then they need to say, let's get out there and cast a wide net. Let's
Yeah.
respect any place where we can find an idea. Let's find some ideas that we can use to begin to think about what we need to do. Let's think about the future. Let's kind of guess, because we don't know exactly where the future is going and where we need to get to.
Yeah.
Um, and then let's understand that if we don't do something, someone else is going to eat our lunch. And unless we don't like our lunch, we ought to protect it. That's
Got
my
protect the
view.
edge.
You know,
Absolutely.
if I packed a
Absolutely.
bad lunch, let somebody eat it.
Yeah, thinking. Yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, I gotta protect my lunch. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. So I feel like leaders need to do the exact same things. Leaders need to model these six behaviors that I want people to think about,
Hmm.
because if they model these behaviors, then they send a sign, okay? Like if a leader comes into a room and says, this is what we're talking about. My guess is a lot of us, if we're being honest, don't know the answer. That's okay. Feel free to share that you don't know the answer and ask a question that's going to make us better.
Gotcha. Yep. Again, going back to the not knowing and being okay with not knowing, and I think that's important. Um, I do think that, fear does play a big part in why people don't want to innovate or are afraid to innovate, particularly when things are uncertain, when certain times are uncertain, which is interesting because from my viewpoint, I think when things are uncertain, that's even more reason why you need to do
Oh,
things differently, innovate. I mean,
yeah,
if you're going along a certain path and it got you to a certain point and you're not happy with that point, going on a certain path isn't going to change, right?
right.
It's you got that's so that's where innovation comes in, creativity comes to play. But I think for some, and maybe not just individuals but organizations, there's just this fear of the what if. The uncertainty, and so the idea of embracing that is really scary for people.
Well, yes, no, you're exactly right. And I always tell people we're not going to bet the entire ranch, but we better bet part of the ranch.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And so everybody shows up at work on Monday and they look in their inbox and they go, I got a lot of stuff to do, and we've been pretty darn successful. So let's just keep doing more of this stuff.
Yep.
And so that might be good on a given Monday, but next Monday and the Monday after and the Monday after that, the world is starting to change. So I say, let's continue to be remarkable at what we do. Let's make it better if people still want it, but let's take some experimenting. Let's come up with some ideas, put them out in the marketplace, test them with customers, ask them their opinions, and then figure out which ones seem to get the most traction and devote some time and energy to doing those. So I think you're right. Fear is huge. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't, but fear gets back to what we were just talking about, and that is the idea that do people know that you have a lighting issue here, young man? Okay. Okay. But anyway, the wait, I thought they produced a lot of energy and electricity in Canada. What's this all about? Okay. But anyway, yeah. So the reality is fear is kind of a normal thing, but we've all
Right.
got to get over it. Okay. We're all
Yeah.
in the kind of same boat of wanting to make an impact
Yep.
and being afraid to start. But, I don't know. Somebody said, or a lot of people said, you miss all the shots you don't take, right? So I was the captain of my high school basketball team. I was actually pretty good at certain things. I was really
Okay.
good at passing the ball.
Yeah.
I made 51 straight free throws, which was a California high school record for a while.
Nice. Nice.
But free throws, nobody was guarding me. Okay. So that made it a little bit easier. Okay.
Come on, man. Hey,
But
listen, it's still an accomplishment. It's still the ball goes in there. Give yourself some credit. I'm
oh,
with
no,
you.
no, no. I think that's fair. But my coach would regularly say, so Gregerman, are you going to like take a shot? And I'd go, well, I think these other guys are like better at taking a shot. He goes, but you're like wide open. Take a shot. You know, if you don't take a shot, you're never going to make a shot. So
True.
I want people to think about that they got to be great at what they do. And if they're doing great right now, that's fine, but it won't be great 5 years from now. And so they need to take some new shots. Not
Right.
uninformed shots, but they need to take some new
Yeah.
shots. And so I want people to think about that. I can't tell people whether to be fearful or not. I can say for me, the biggest fear is not changing, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah.
And so kind of look at me. I mean, I'm not like a Gen Xer or a Yer or Zer or whatever generation. So um, I got to change every day. I got to keep up,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
I speak around the world and the head of the speakers bureau I work with one day said, Alan, have you taken a look at your audiences lately? And I used to show up at speeches wearing like a suit and tie, and he'd go, do you see anybody wearing a tie? And I'd go, no. And he goes, is there a reason you're going to keep wearing a tie? And I go, no.
There
Good point. And so now I'm a little bit more colorful, of course. I mean, I
you
like
go. Yeah.
color, but
Yeah.
the
That
reality is
suits you.
I better be hip and I better be changing. I better be using AI for good. um, I better know what's going on in town.
Yep.
I better know the best practices and innovation if I'm going to be helpful to the folks we serve. And I believe everybody needs to keep up, you know? I
Yes.
can't keep
Absolutely.
watch I can't keep watching reruns of Parks and Recreation, or something like that, or Abbott Elementary. I gotta create a new episode here, and I'm not gonna do it, unless I get over a bit of the fear and try something new.
I love it. I love it. So then what would you say to if you were to give a piece of advice to someone who feels stuck because they don't know enough? What
Okay.
would you tell them?
Oh, so that's a great question. I would tell them that one of two things is happening. Either they're in the wrong place because
Right?
they're not in a place that makes them feel comfortable not knowing, or they exhibit the wrong kind of not knowing. Okay, so this book and kind of my work is about what I call enlightened ignorance, and that's the
Okay.
idea that not knowing is the spark for me to know. And I feel like we all need kind of just in time knowledge because the problem's today. So I got to find the best answer today.
Yeah.
So if you're in the wrong place, I don't know if the job market's great, but find a place where they actually care about you being smart, but not knowing all the answers. Find
Right.
that kind of place. And if the problem is within you, I don't want to say because I'm not a promoter of things, but I'd love people to kind of read my book, and if they don't like it,
Yes. Read your no, no, no.
and my
Say it
book is
boldly with your
colorful
chest.
too, so
Wisdom of ignorance. Read your book.
yeah.
Yes.
But I'd like them to read it because I believe it will give them the spark to believe. It's like I hope, a permission slip that you don't have
Yes.
to know everything to make a difference. So, so I want people to think about that. But I realize it's tough. We get stuck. There's inertia. We get
Of
stuck in
course.
an organization. The
Yes.
organization promised us it would allow us to think, kind of doesn't, sort of. Um, we got to create a place where we can be our best self and where we can make a difference.
I love it. I love it. So then in your view, what makes living audaciously essential for thriving in the future?
Oh, okay. I thought you'd ask me this question at some point. You're the audacious living guy.
It only makes
Um,
sense.
I believe living is, oh, there's so many things. This is a complicated thing, but for me, to wake up each day and believe I can make a difference, especially now in the world and make it a better place,
Mm,
that's worth doing for me. I mentioned at the outset I do a lot of volunteering. Um, and so even when the big world is kind of crazy, I believe each and every day I can do something to help make somebody else's life better. And so
I
I'm
love it.
energized to do that. Um, I'm energized because I love to travel.
Okay.
And so that makes life audacious for me. So we are privileged to be able to travel a fair amount. And I like to travel because I meet new people who are different than me.
Yep.
Um, and who um, give me a sense that there's so much to learn and so much to be open-minded to. You know,
Mm,
I'm walking down a street in rural northern India. I work with a paper mill in northern India. and these two older gentlemen walk up. It's a rural street, and one guy who has a camera says, "My friend would like a picture with you." And I go, "I'm not particularly good looking." And he goes, "No, you don't understand. My friend spent his whole life in this village. He's never seen a white person before." And I go, "Hey, whatever, and he takes a picture, and the friend who speaks Hindi, not English, just smiles, he puts his hand over his heart, like
Yep.
I've done something really nice. I do wish I looked like George Clooney then. No, but anyway, um, no, but the reality is everyone I meet, I get a sense of kind of their world,
Of course.
and I learned some things from them. So that makes life audacious for me. The ability to kind of travel and meet new people is kind of a thing. Um, the ability to have alone time is kind of audacious for me, to learn new things,
Mm.
to write a book, to do
Yeah,
those
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Um, the ability to eat good food is kind of an audacious
Yeah,
thing. I mean, at the start of like every meal with family, if we're going someplace, if we cook, of course, but if we're going out somewhere, I do a toast to the fact that we have the privilege of eating a nice meal, and so I
sure.
I just view I'm grateful, so I don't know if you know this. I mean, I think I was kind of always like this, but 4.5 years ago, I had a rare stroke and I couldn't see or speak for
Wow,
18 months.
wow.
Um, and so now, obviously, I talk too much, okay? But the reality is, all through my kind of therapy, I kept
Mhm.
saying to myself, I'm going to speak again, and I'm going to be more and
Beautiful.
more engaged in trying to make a difference in the world. That for some reason, I'm still alive, because, as you said at the outset, somebody believes I can do something useful. And so,
Yes.
the privilege of having the opportunity to try and make a difference is kind of audacious living to me.
As you're talking, and you're giving those examples, it very much has reinforced what I said at the top. Of we're all are it's very personal what audacious living is, and we're all on our own individual journey or
Right.
pathway, and exactly what you've described. And totally love that, Alan. I totally love that. Look, we've had some great time together with the OL question. I've had a blast, but I want to let's inject a little bit more fun in this. Some quick rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your mind. Hey, is it how you feel about that?
Oh no, that's fine. No, I'm good with that.
All
I mean,
right, let's do it.
we'll see after, we'll see what the
Just a few of
questions are
them. We'll
like.
make it easy stuff. I'm sure you can. You can handle.
Okay, good.
Curiosity or expertise. What's more important to you?
Oh, come on. I hope after our conversation, curiosity trumps expertise 1,000 times. Let's be honest,
All
okay?
right. Favorite book on innovation, but not your own.
My favorite book, Christensen's book, The Innovator's Dilemma. It's all
Okay,
about the idea that even if you're brilliant, you're going to get disrupted unless you keep paying attention.
got you. What's one question you ask yourself daily?
Uh, am I the best person I can be today? And am
Mm,
I committed to making a difference and making the world a better place?
I love it. What scares you more, not knowing or knowing too much?
Uh, in the world we live in right now, what scares me is knowing too much about the people who don't know anything, okay?
Love that. The most surprising place you've gotten inspiration.
Oh God. Outside of McDonald's with a homeless man named Frank, who I write about in the book.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I mean, he's in. So, Frank, to just tell a tiny bit of the story
Yep.
prior to losing his job and his family and being homeless, was a jazz musician. And so
Mm,
I love jazz, but of course, Frank knew a lot about jazz. And so just sitting, and Frank would always eat two McDonald's apple pies. I'm not sure that's the healthiest breakfast, but Frank's an adult. Um,
sure.
and then he would tell me about jazz and say, listen to this. And some
Hmm.
of it was not so well known, and I would listen to it and be blown away. So, yeah, so I get inspiration everywhere, but I think about Frank a lot.
What would be the first step that anyone could take to start to think more creatively? Creativity.
Get out of their office or their home or wherever they hang out. If you're in a city that's really nice, wander around with your eyes wide open, looking for things that strike you as awesome. And then just make a list of those things and then think about how those things might influence how you engage in work or in life.
Gotcha. Last one, the biggest myth about innovation that you'd love to bust.
Oh, so the biggest myth about innovation that most companies believe is that innovation is all about experts figuring out a better way to do things. Innovation is all about having an open mind. Experts sometimes come up with brilliant ideas, but they do when they suspend their expertise and they ask better questions.
I love it. I love it. Alan, this has been very, very wonderful. For listeners that want to connect with you directly, learn more about you, or hold up your book again there, so I can see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There it
So
is.
it's
The
called The
Wisdom of
Wisdom of
Ignorance.
Ignorance. Yeah, and I like it. I have a quote from Mel Robbins. She's
Okay.
endorsed it. If any of your listeners kind of follow her, um,
Beautiful.
they can go to my website, which is Alan, Alan, Gregerman, Gregerman.com. They can follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn. They can send me a note. I respond to every single note I get, and I don't even use AI to do that.
Good for
If they
you.
get a note from me, it's actually me doing it.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah. So those would be great ways. I'd love to find out what the folks who are listening are working on and connect with them and learn from them. That would be awesome.
We will encourage listeners to do so. We'll make sure all the appropriate contact details are in the show notes as well. Alan, this has been phenomenal. I love the chat, love the insights, love the journey that you've taken to get to where you're at now. And again, I want to thank you and extend my appreciation for being a guest on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Well, I love what you're up to, and I've loved the conversation, and I would welcome any other chance to talk with you.
Oh, beautiful. Well, if you come to Toronto for that book tour, please look me
Okay,
up. I definitely will make it
perfect,
happen.
perfect. Thanks a million.
Welcome back to the podcast. And when I think about my biggest takeaway from this conversation is it's this. Not knowing is not a weakness. It's an invitation. Alan reframed ignorance as something we should learn or lean into and not hide from. When paired with curiosity and purpose, ignorance becomes the starting point of innovation, deeper connection, and meaningful change. He also reminded us that diversity of thought is not optional. It's essential. We do not get breakthrough ideas by surrounding ourselves with people who think exactly like we do. We grow by listening, respecting, and learning from perspectives that challenge us. When I think about what I loved about this interview with Alan, it was his humility. Despite his global experience and expertise, he showed up with genuine openness, no ego, no pretending to have all the answers, just curiosity, honesty, and a deep respect for human potential. It really reinforced something that I believe deeply. You cannot be curious and judgmental at the exact same time. Curiosity softens us. It opens the doors. It creates a space for innovation, empathy, and growth. This conversation reminded me that audacity is not about having it all figured out. It's about having the courage to move forward anyway. If this chat resonated with you, I strongly encourage you to connect with Alan directly. You can learn more about him and his work, as well as his book and his mission and all that he has going on at AlanGregerman.com, and connect with him on LinkedIn as well. All of his contact details are available in the show notes. And yes, he genuinely responds by himself, and it's him authentically. That's for sure. Remember that trail we talked about at the beginning? I want to refresh our memory here, because we don't need a perfect roadmap to take that first step. You just need curiosity, purpose, and the willingness to learn as you go. That is audacious living. If this episode added value to your life, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, and share this podcast with someone you know. Helps this message reach even more people who need it. Until next time, keep asking better questions, keep learning, and keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be